and it seems like it's been forever since we've done one of these things.
Last time we were here, did you go to children's school here in Lakeland again? That didn't work.
Shortly after that, we ended this school year.
Yeah.
Like 2 days later.
Yeah.
There's some things on
So that was when, 7 March, last time we were here. We're ready to go. We'll call this meeting, this special call meeting of the Pulaski County School Board to order. It's actually, it's good to be back in the school board office. The last time we were in, held a meeting in this chamber was back in March earlier this year, and so it's good to be back at the school board office today. Purpose of the meeting today is to hear from our superintendent in regards to our Pulaski County Public Schools instructional plan for reopening. So at this time, we will go ahead and turn the meeting over to the superintendent of schools, Dr. Kevin Sears.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. If you remember, our plan was developed in June, early July, and was approved at our meeting in July. And since that time, some of the guidance has shifted and is a little different, and some of the elements of our plan actually were contradictory to other elements of the plan. So what I'm suggesting today for the board to consider are 3 amendments that just give our plan a little more flexibility and address some of the changes in guidance that we are receiving. The first one that I'm suggesting would be that we can establish and modify the percentage of students attending in-person classes each week based on internal data with guidance from the New River Health District. And the rationale behind that is our plan calls for us to move forward and backward as a whole division, and I'm just asking that we have a little more flexibility to look at individual schools or maybe individual areas of the county so that we don't have to stop in person at every school because 1 or 2 schools may be experience positive COVID test. And this puts more emphasis on the consultation and guidance from the appropriate health officials than what we previously had, which was just meeting calendar objectives. The second amendment I would like for the board, or I'm asking the board to consider, is that we make use of available cafeteria and common spaces in order to provide adequate physical distancing for students while eating meals. In our plan, we eliminated the use of this space for meals, but more recent guidance says that if they need to be used to spread students out to ensure 6 feet, that is more valuable mitigation strategy than just not having meals in the cafeteria. So I would ask that we give schools the flexibility to be able to spread students out a little more. Our new middle school has a lot of commons area in each grade level wing that can be utilized for this, and whereas if students are in a classroom where we can't maintain 6 feet of distancing, it becomes very difficult for everyone to take their mask off and eat and not be exposed if there is someone positive. So this just would give us a little more flexibility on that. The third amendment I would ask the board to consider would be to allow up to 3 students for every 2 adjacent seats during the bus transportation, providing that masks are utilized. The third student would be staggered, and we would not start putting 3 students per every row of seats until, all the seats have been filled. And, the current plan for transportation of having one student per seat, that would still be our goal for each day. This just gives us with the new guidance that we've received, if we incorporate this, it allows us to make exceptions and transport additional students when the need arises. And some examples may be when, if a bus breaks down, if car riders can't be picked up or dropped off, and I think this situation happened earlier this week, although we were only at 50%, so it was not as big an issue, but we had more students riding the bus in the afternoon than we had riding it in the morning, so it's really hard to predict how these numbers will play out, and this just gives us a little cushion to still transport students safely and be in compliance with the guidance, but not be held to the 20 students per bus if we need to put a couple more on there.
The board's heard the recommendations from Dr. Sears regarding possible amendments to the Pulaski County Public Schools instructional plan for reopening schools this year. At this time, are there any questions or comments from the board?
Yes, Mr. Chairman, I think that this summer, and I know guidelines have changed somewhat, but it depends on what guidelines you will look at, because some guidelines are still saying that 6 foot is not far enough apart. We spent quite a few hours, a lot of man hours with people from the central office, yourself, board members, teachers, parents, school administrators, etc., to make this plan out. We felt like we had a pretty good plan. We submitted it to DOE. They approved. We submitted it to the press and one to the parents. I'm not much on amendments because every time something comes up and we want to change in the middle of the road, we're going to just add an amendment. If we want to scratch the plan and start all over from scratch, that's fine. But I think right now we need to stick with the plan as written. I have had 8 emails come to me in the last 2 days since word this meeting came out. I have not had a single person tell me that they want to go to 100%. Everybody wants to stay at 50%. And they want to see us follow the plan. It was not all teachers, it was teachers and parents both saying that. Matter of fact, one parent even suggested that we go 50% until January 2021. I know myself, if there was a student in a classroom that had COVID, or let me not say a student, but a teacher in a classroom that had COVID and had to be out for 14 days, I would not want to substitute in that classroom. Would you? Would you? I don't think many of us would. But we're asking these teachers to go into these classrooms with 100% occupancy. Some of our classes are overloaded anyway, and I think it's a bad move.
May I?
Dr. Cash?
I don't see anything wrong with the amendments as they are, but I concur with Mr. Benson that I'm not sure we are quite ready to go to 100%, and I have received about 8 Facebook messages and emails myself concerning this issue. I have had 2 teachers tell me that we need to go to 100% because they're concerned that these are veteran elementary school teachers, and I absolutely trust their judgment, but they said we have to go to 100 because their students can't read. And I understand absolutely what they're saying, but I've had just as many people tell me we've got to stay at 50-50, and I've had other people tell me we need to go all virtual because they are worried that we are unable to keep the students 6 feet apart or maintain the mask wearing, and they're worried about their own families, and they're worried about the other there's the staff and they're worried about a spread that we don't find out about until it's already rampant through a school. I mean, as it is now, when we're at 50%, it's pretty easy to contract trace because we've only got 50% of the students there. You know, when we found out about the case that was at Pulaski County High School, everybody knew that students who were in the first part of the alphabet hadn't been exposed, so that was much easier to deal with. But the case for going 100%, I'm just not sure that we're ready to do that yet. That's it.
Ms. Cox, you were going to speak.
Yes, just to clarify what I'm hearing, these three amendments do not change the plan as far as when we go or don't go to 100%. Only if we do it for every school or some schools, correct?
Yes.
Okay.
Anyone else like to address Dr. Sears or comment?
I would, I received, I only received 3 calls, and they were kind of mixed. I had, they were all teachers too, so they were kind of mixed on what we should do, what we shouldn't do. So, you know, I agree in part about amendments to a point, but I think we're at, you know, an unprecedented time, and, you know, what we're doing and what we need to do moving forward, so. That was all.
I have a specific question about 2 of the amendments, if I can ask.
Go ahead, Dr. Cash.
Thank you. Amendment 2, I like this idea, even with 50%. Are we talking about utilizing this now and utilizing the cafeteria and common areas for eating? Are we doing this now, or are we waiting to initiate that when we go to 100%?
No, this would be in place even if we stayed at 50%.
Okay, thank you, that's good, I think that's very good. And amendment 3, how has the mask compliance been on the buses? I mean, if we're gonna put students that close together, they have to be wearing face coverings. Has the compliance been such that we can do this and feel confident that we're not increasing spread?
The feedback that I've received has been extremely positive in mask wearing at all levels and on transportation. But Jess is in here, and he could probably address if we have had any specific issues.
Early on, we had a couple of issues where they said the kids were getting off without them, but for the most part, you know, it's been fairly well managed. They don't get on without them, but, you know, if they take it off while we're driving, you know, there's no way for us to really police it.
I know they're uncomfortable, trust me, nobody likes them. This is definitely not a positive of this pandemic, but, it's necessary. So I just want to know if that was going to be an issue. So thank you.
Right. And I would say back to the First Amendment, you know, based on what we put in the initial plan of this amendment, my recommendation would be that we continue the middle and high school at 50% for another week, but move forward with elementary. The only positive cases in elementary were from Monday. It will be, anyway, this coming Monday would be 2 weeks. It would be for 2-week deadline for, you know, unless we happen to have a positive case today or tomorrow, but it would, we would be at 2 weeks on Monday.
But just to be clear, that is not what we are asked to address. That is just the school system following the plan that we have in place.
Yeah, what we're asking the board to consider are these amendments to give us a little more flexibility in making these decisions than what is currently in the plan.
I guess my comments would be this is an ever evolving situation. And with our plan, to me, it seems like it was a little concrete, a little stringent, that gave us very little flexibility. I think the superintendent, I think the board should have more flexibility to deal with these decisions. Like many of you, I received several emails, about 7 or 8, but we have 4,000 students. And so that means I didn't receive emails from over 3,900 and some odd parents of students and so forth. So we did receive a few. And whatever decisions we make, we always want to do what's best in the best interest of our kids and of our faculty and staff, and keep people safe. Any decision we make is going to be a difficult decision. But it always has to be what's in the best interest for the child. And if you ask any educator, I believe, if you ask our superintendent, is a child best served by face-to-face instruction versus virtual? I think, of course, the verdict is still out. That's a brand new area that we're dealing with virtual, but I know, and we've heard from several that we have quite a few folks that have yet to even sign in to virtual. Very little response in a lot of situations to virtual. And in my opinion, how can that be good for a child? I think it's our obligation to do everything that we can to give a child the best opportunity to be successful. And in my opinion, and I'm one of 5, and this board is not always going to agree on everything 100%, and that's okay. That's okay. But in my opinion, if we need the flexibility to be able to move more toward in-person instruction, if at all possible. So I would certainly be in support of the 3 amendments. Any other comments?
I think the amendments themselves are very well thought out.
Sure.
And I agree, virtual learning is for this age group a big unknown and may not be successful. But this is where we are right now. But I also think that we need to take in that when we do make any decisions on attendance percentages at the school, we need to listen to our community. That's it.
Thank you, Dr. Cash. Any other comments? The board has been presented with the information at this time. Is there how would the board like to proceed? Would you like to move this to an action item?
Mr. Chairman, I would like to see this move to an action item.
Are you making a motion?
Yes.
Okay, the motion's been made by Mrs. Cox, the vice chair, to move this to an action item. Is there a second?
Second.
Mrs. Porter?
Mr. Benson?
No.
Ms. Cox?
Yes.
Dr. Cash?
Yes.
Ms. Golden?
Yes.
Mr. Hurst?
Yes. The amendments have been moved to an action item. At this time, is there a motion to approve the amendments to the Pulaski County Public Schools instructional plan for reopening?
Mr. Chairman, I'll make a motion that we approve the 3 amendments as listed for the Pulaski County Public School instructional plan for reopening.
Is there a second?
Second.
Mrs. Porter?
Mr. Benson?
No.
Ms. Cox?
Yes.
Dr. Cash?
Yes.
Ms. Golden?
Yes.
Mr. Hurst?
Yes. We want to thank everybody for coming out this evening or this afternoon for this special call meeting of the Pulaski County School Board. Once again, these are very challenging times, and